My fence is resting. Got to do something about that sometime. Well, my fence blew down, so I'm going to put up some new lattice panels. Now it's not surprising they blew down because they've been up for about 30 years. Oh, there's quite a bit of wind here. I hope it's alright. Anyway, I'm not a builder, it's just DIY. If you see a mistake, it's just a mistake, right? So, I've got the new panels and new posts, but I'm going to reuse the spikes that are on the bottom of the post. Sometimes they're called Met posts. They're about £10 each, something like that. So $12.50 if we're in US, maybe €11, something like that if we're international and European. So I'm going to do this the cheapest way I can. I'm going to keep the shots fairly closed up just for privacy, if you don't mind. But anyway, this might be useful to somebody. Getting these posts out. So this one's obviously come out of the ground. Sorry, there is a lot of wind. I hope this is okay. If you go around it with a spade and then you say take a pick and hook it there, you can lever it out of the ground if you're lucky. Sometimes there's a bit of a struggle, so I have a trenching spade and I just put it down there like that and do it this side like that all the way around, and the closer you can get it to the spike the better, like that. Now, any spade will do, but if you've got one of these it's just a bit easier. And then you'll probably have to pull this away a bit like this, look. And then it may take a few goes. Just get that in down there. There you are. Clean that off and that'll be fine. Now it might rot a little bit along here, but that one's not bad, look. And there's about 8 or 9 of these on this fence, so that's a good £80 or £90 saved. You can see there this steel wired armoured cable coming up to this socket, and then it goes off to another socket, would you believe? Done by the people before us. They had a pond and a pump and so on. Now steel wired armoured is supposed to be buried 18 inches in the ground by regulation, and actually you can see that's going right down, so I'm just going to leave that alone. But it does mean I do have to keep a post here. Okay, so I'm not going to touch this electrically at all. I'll just re-site that socket on there. So with that electrical outlet, I've now got my fixed point. So to make the arch wider, I'll have to move those panels further over away. And I could measure all this out, but honestly, it's just as easy to lay it down. It's my own garden. I don't care. I'm sure if I was a customer, I'd be shouting at whoever's doing the work by now, but I'm not going to shout at myself. I'll just take a section of this, half of it maybe, and that'll be the archway coming through here. And then I can always, to my right, I can bring this post closer this way if I want. Yeah, so that's the plan, and it means that I avoid all the old holes. Now if you've got concrete posts, then you've got a couple of choices. You either put them somewhere else to avoid the concrete that's in the ground and just leave it there if you can, or you just have to dig them out. But once you've dug them out, you've got to cart that concrete base away, which is quite a lump, and then when you infill that, of course, the ground's going to be soft again. It's quite doable, it's just a bit more work, that's all. It takes a bit more thought. Now you can see I've put this orange twine down, and that's my line, but how do I know that it's square? And what you can do, I've already checked that these two walls are parallel with each other, so just by measuring distance between them at a couple of places, they seem to be parallel. So then what you can do is put this piece of wood, anything straight, along the wall at one side to take an average, because of course the bricks are coming in and out everywhere. So you put that on there, you can put a square on, you can extend that square with another piece of straight wood and then sight along it and get your line right. So the next question is, how does the land fall? So you could start from one end and find that the land going the other way is rising, and before you know it, you're digging a trench to put your fence in, which is not what you want to do. You don't want it to be wet at the bottom. So we've got to figure out what the fall is. Now if we had a laser level, I suppose we would use that. I haven't got one, I don't think. Well, I'm going to do it this way. It's a bit laborious, but it works. So get a long piece of wood, as long as you've got, that's straight, put it down at one end, put a level on it, and then chock it up at whichever end to get it level, and then leave that chock in place, move on, move it this way, and then see what gap you've got at the other end. Of course, it is a lot quicker with a laser level, but got to work with what you got, right? Anyway, a laser level's a modern invention. What did they do before those? Right, so it's low at this end, which I thought it would be. Now I need to find something to chock it up with. Let's try this. Now, of course, the level's going to fall off, isn't it? It always does. Yep, there you go. Okay, well, leave me to sort this out. Well, that's about level at that. So if I leave that chock here in place and come across here, rest it on there. Pretty obvious, I think, what I'm doing. That's got quite a drop. Not ridiculous, but let's have a look. Oh, there you go, that's about right. So the land actually is pretty level. I just want to check it close to the path, but that's pretty good. So as long as my post at the far side, can you see me? As long as the post at the far side is vertical, and that's another thing to check, we can just start off with the panels and pretty much run level. Whatever gap above the ground I want at that end, maybe that much or something, it'll just follow straight through. I will just check it about where you are now, but I think it's about right looking at it. So the ground, we're lucky, the ground's about level. It dips in the middle, but it's about level. Well, this post is miles off vertical, absolutely miles off, so I'm going to have to put in about a 2-inch block in there. No, maybe not so much as that, 1.25 inches. What's that? 1.25 inches? 32 millimeters to you. Right, so I'm actually going to put another post on here, screwed to this one, but with the packing in to make it a vertical post to fix the panel to. Yeah. I wanted to use an old post for this spacer, but they're all so flea bitten, wood wormed, so I'm going to use a new one. It'll be 5 foot, which is the height of the panel, or 1.5 meters, plus 2 inches, which is 50 millimeters, isn't it? Near enough, 50.8. And I'll cut this with a chop saw, which is a really handy tool. I'm not sure of the proper name for this, combination angle saw or something. Anyway, around here it's called a chop saw because it chops. Watch out, these posts can be bent, particularly where there's a knot. Now you might not be able to see this, but this post, as you look along it, is curving off to the right. Now the other face doesn't. So this will be the face that goes up against that other post. Now the other post might be bent, I don't know, but we don't want the panel going up against a curved edge, that's all. Okay, so I attached the post at the top, I've packed it here, and I just kept moving the packing about until I've got it vertical in that direction, and also I know it's vertical in this direction as well. Screw, that's the longest I've got, so I'm just going to have to set that in. So I'll just put a countersink in there, countersink, a hole as big as this head, so the screw can go in a bit further. Oh, and it's the easiest thing ever to break drills off in a big piece of wood like this, so just be careful. I'm sure there's hundreds of drills been snapped like that. Good. And of all the things, all the tools I use, this is the one of the ones that I fear the most. The other one is the wheelbarrow, because I'll guarantee to you, if I'm using a wheelbarrow, I'll fall over and impale myself on the handles. Right, so just whoop, see what I mean? There we are, that's done. So even when it's got quite a bit of wood in it, you can get it out with this, but just be ever so careful. I'm sure everybody has their own methods. This is what I do. So next we need to put this post onto this. Now I always put the spikes on these posts first. I haven't cut the post to length because I don't know what height it's going to end up, if you see what I mean. Push this onto here like that, and then you have to hammer this onto this because there are bits of metal here that are bent inwards to trap this on two sides, that side and that side, and it's quite a job. I don't know the best way to do it. I just do it with brute force by using a sledgehammer on the end of the piece of wood. So, you know, you might be able to tell me a better way to do it, but that's how I've done it. I've changed my method a bit this time. I used to put the spike against the wall, but it doesn't do the wall any good, so now I just do it this way. Now it might seem a bit strange, but I'm actually going to put the panel on next, and then I'll put the post to the panel. Now I suspect a professional wouldn't do it this way, but I know this is vertical and I know the panel is square, so I've packed it at the behind me. I've packed it so it will sit square to this. Now I'm using this extension with a bit in the end there, and it means I can get these almost at 90 to this end. If you try and get them in sideways, it doesn't work very well. So I'll just start it through. And I'm not having to drill them. Well, it's on level and vertical and waving in the wind, which is a nuisance. But it's quite tricky to get these posts in and in the right place. It's really a two-person job, if I'm honest. I can see my line, and as it turned out, it's lined up with the original hole, which I didn't expect. Never mind. If I hold that like that, that will keep it vertical in this plane, but I need to figure it out in this plane. This is where you really need two people. Anyway, the ground is going to be fairly soft because I've just filled in the old hole. Right, so when I've got this started, I'll be up on here with a sledgehammer to knock it in and get lost in this tree which is above me now. Right, stand by. That's going to go over, isn't it, as soon as I walk away. Right, once you've got it started and it's standing on its own, you can be a bit more vigorous, but for the time being it's one-handed. I must remember to keep my thumb out of the way. Right, I'm going to check that for vertical in this direction. What did I do with the level? Now I want to put it in so that the metal part's just above the ground, which is about there. I've got a helper. You see, I've put that clamp on there and it just makes it easier to get the screws in tightly. Doesn't it? Yeah. Jolly good. I'm sure you'll be a great deal of help. What does what do? What does this do? What does it do? It makes a line on the ground so that I know where a straight line is. There we are. We can squeeze that on there, look. Yeah. And then we can do this. Oh. And then it pulls the panel up tightly, you see, to the post. So that one's done. Yeah. What do you think?
that this out?
It is out. You're quite right. Yeah, it probably is a mile out actually. Okay, then we've got to think about the next one. Yeah. So shall I go and see your mummy and see what's happening? Yeah. All right then. Let's put this somewhere. Let's put it on here. Dad? Yes, love.
I'll see my mummy too.
You're going to see your mummy too? Good. Okay. We'll take a break then for a few minutes. Yeah, don't fall down that hole then. So from here it's basically just step and repeat, isn't it? I'm sure there's an easier way to get these posts in. It's solid enough though. I packed it all the way around. I used a mallet and a bit of wood. Because this hole had been used before, you see, I had to pack it out. So just a mallet. Yeah? I'm coming. Good. If you were putting in wooden posts into concrete, you'd put the posts in first and then put the panels in. Now if you dig a squarish hole for your concrete, drop your post in, pack it so it's vertical, drop your concrete in, you'd be surprised, it'll stay upright. You just pack it down around, you can get your post perfectly vertical. You'd space your posts using just a batten, so you'd cut your batten to either 6 foot or 1.8 meters, which is not the same, depending on what panels you've got. And using that then, that's how a professional would do it. They'd drop the posts in, check the distancing with a batten, let that go off, come back the next day, or in fact maybe even the same day. You'd be surprised how rigid these posts can be just with even, you know, concrete that's still wet. And that's what you do. Now if you've got existing posts and you want to put in new panels, just bear in mind that 6 foot versus 1.8 meters. 1.8 meters is a bit shorter. You can always put a bit of packing in. You can't do the opposite. You don't want to be cutting the end off your panel. It doesn't work very well. So I'll bring you back when I've done most of this, or at some point in the middle if there's anything to see. But as you can tell, most of the hard work is the thinking work. And once you've planned it all out, this is, you know, pretty much just a process. Well, I think that's enough for one shift. What have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4 posts, 3 panels, this one cut to size. Whole thing start to finish, planning everything, maybe 4.5 hours, something like that. So if the weather's okay tomorrow, I'll finish it. Well, a slight complication here, because I had intended to use standard panels throughout and just make up a short panel for the far end. But unfortunately the fact that I can't move that electrical socket fixes that post in position, and I need a longer panel to that side. Now the manufacturer does make bespoke panels. It's not that much extra, but it wasn't my plan. So now I do have some spare panel, luckily, so I'm going to put that there and use these across here. Now they will show on this side, but I do have a bush that sits here, and for as long as that lives they'll be covered up, because I'm not a great gardener, as you probably realise. I've checked that the panel is flat, so I don't end up with a banana panel when I put this together. And also I've checked its length on both sides, because it is human made, it's not robot made, because I can see some misalignments in these. Anyway, it'll be fine. A couple of screws each side and some glue. Next time you see it, you won't even know. Where did the sun go? Well, all that's left to do now is cut the tops of the posts and finish the arch. I'm just trying to figure out how to make this arch. Now I'm sorry this is a bit of a sky shot, but again it's just to try and keep some privacy, that's all. Now I know I've got a panel which is 1.5 by 1.8, well actually 6 foot to be accurate, and so I can make two 90s, 90 centimetre, do I mean? Yes, 900 millimeters. So part of a panel, part of a panel. So I've made this mock-up. Now I'm going to cut here at an angle, so I'll use my circular saw to do that, probably, if I can set it up on the angle. Now the original arch was just over 1 meter wide, and this was at 90 degrees, but I can't do that with this because of the limitation of these lengths that I've got on the panels when I cut them. And anyway, it would be kind of too high. So this is a good compromise. This is about 2.1 off the ground. Now, because I'm a sort of engineer, I worked it out by scale drawing, and I think this angle was going to be 36 degrees. Well, when I measure it, as you would if you were an engineer type of person, well, it's measuring out at 38, although I'm not sure I've got that right. Yeah, 38. I mean, anybody else would just do this, put a line on, and that would be it, wouldn't it? So I'll just follow these through with a handsaw, try and keep the right angle. I mean, like I said before, somebody who does this for a living wouldn't be messing about like this. They'd have had it done about a day ago or more. Come on. On the previous arch, these angles here were about the first to go. They just rotted right out. So I've got a piece of lead, and I'm just going to cut some rectangles out, and I'll just put a bit of lead on here. Do you know, this is about the first decent day we've had since about December. What are we now? Mid-March, third week of March, something like that. It's been absolutely dismal. Right. This is just a piece of lead I had over from another job, so I'm not sure I would actually buy one just for this, buy a roll just for this. It's not worth it. But for this job, it's this bit I've got left is going to be just right. I'll just have it coming off the back a little bit. There we are. I've just put a couple of brackets on the inside of this ridge, and then I know that between each side should be 55 inches, and then I'll put something across here. I think if it was a roof, I think you'd call that a collar. Not sure. Anyway, to hold it in shape, and then I'll try it on. Do you know, I've got about 3 WhatsApp chats on the go at the moment, which are pinging me to death. Let's see if we can get through this without another ping. I bought these panel cappings without realising that these deluxe panels already have a cap rail already. So these are spare for me now, and I'm thinking about putting these on the front here. Like that, look. And then I've already got the angle set on here from cutting these. So when you cut these, you'll find that what works on the front left, the other end can be used for the back right, and vice versa. The wind's getting up again. Yeah, I just nailed that on now. Maybe screw it on actually. It's done. Now I didn't put a collar here because the 2 posts nearest me are supported either side by the panels going outwards. But I've put a collar there because the 2 posts furthest from me would splay out in time, and that should stop it. Now it's screwed and glued, and the same with these front facings are screwed and glued. So I hope that'll do the trick. So the next thing you'll see is the job all finished. Well, it's all finished now with the post caps on, if you can see them. The electrical sockets back on where it was, and I used the opportunity to go around the corner a little bit, which I'll show you. Now the whole job has cost me just under £500. So what's that, about 580 euros or about 640 US dollars. So that's just for the bits. And then you need all the tools. Well, you don't need all the tools, you need some tools, and then do the work. And I don't know, I suppose a professional would have done it in a day and a bit maybe. It's taken me, I've spread the work over 3 days. And anyway, something's gone wrong with the weather because it's sunny. I don't have a jumper on. First time this year, 3rd week of March. Anyway, there's still quite a lot of work to do because I've got to get rid of all the old stuff, cut it up, take it to the tip, sort the garden out if I get round to it. I had this bit of panel left over, so I just took it round the corner. And this is the bush that's covering up my mistake where I had to join extra onto the panel. This was for a fountain on this thing here, which was here when we arrived. And we've been talking about getting rid of it for nearly 20 years. Maybe we will. The magnolia looks nice.